All right, so today we're diving into something pretty profound. We're looking at Surah Al-Insan from the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
And this chapter is really all about, well, us.
Yeah.
Humanity. Where we came from, where we're going, and like what we're supposed to be doing in between.
It really gets into the heart of the human experience, you know, the idea of being created, given this gift of life, but also, like, tested.
Okay, so right from the start, the Surah throws out this, like, mind-blowing question. Has there come upon man a period of time when he was nothing to be mentioned?
Right. It makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Before we were anything, we were nothing. Literally nothing.
It's kind of hard to wrap your head around. Like, we just, poof, appeared out of thin air.
Well, not exactly thin air. The Surah talks about us being created from this liquid mixture.
Oh, right.
But the point is, we were brought into being from a state of non-existence.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty powerful concept.
So, okay, we were created, but then what? What's the point of it all?
That's where the idea of a test comes in. This life we're living, it's not just about existing. It's about being tested, making choices, taking actions, and ultimately being accountable for them.
Okay, so we have free will. We get to choose our path. But how are we supposed to know which way to go?
Well, verse 3 tells us, we guided him to the way, be he appreciative or unappreciative.
So we're given guidance, a path to follow.
Exactly. But it's up to us whether we choose to accept that guidance or reject it.
And that choice has consequences.
Definitely. The Surah is very clear about the consequences of both choosing the right path and straying from it.
Speaking of consequences, I remember reading about the fate of the faithless, and, well, it's pretty intense.
Oh, yeah. Verse 4 paints a pretty vivid picture. It talks about chains and yokes and a searing fire.
Whoa. That's some serious fire and brimstone imagery.
It's meant to be a powerful warning, a reminder of what awaits those who turn away from the truth.
It definitely makes you stop and think about the choices you're making. But then the surah shifts gears and goes from like fiery judgment to, well, something completely different.
Paradise.
Yes, paradise. And the way it's described, it's like sensory overload in the best possible way.
You're right. It goes all out with the details. Luxurious thrones, shady gardens, flowing rivers, delicious food, and...
Eternal youth serving you. Come on, who wouldn't want that?
Right.
And then there's that intriguing detail about the drink flavored with ginger.
Yeah, the ginger drink. It's so specific. It makes you wonder, like, why ginger? What's the significance?
It's one of those little details that makes studying the Quran so fascinating. There's always something more to uncover, layers of meaning to explore.
Totally. Okay, so we've talked about the consequences, both good and bad.
Yeah.
But the surah also goes into detail about the qualities of the righteous, right? Like, what makes someone worthy of paradise?
Absolutely. Verses 7 through 10 lay it all out. Fulfilling vows, fearing a day of widespread ill, feeding the poor, the orphan, the captive, all for the sake of Allah.
It's all about doing good, being compassionate, and not expecting anything in return.
Exactly. Sincerity is key. It's not about doing things for show or to get praise. It's about doing them for the right reasons.
And then there's that whole emphasis on patience.
Yes. Verse 24 talks about the importance of being patient, even when things are difficult.
Which is interesting because the verse right before that talks about how the Quran wasn't revealed all at once. It came down gradually over time.
Right, and that's a reminder for us to trust in Allah's plan, even if we don't see the whole picture right away.
To be patient, to have faith, and to keep striving.
And to remember Allah constantly. Verses 25 and 26 talk about remembering Him through prayer and glorification, both during the day and at night.
So it's not just about actions, it's about cultivating a state of mind, a constant awareness of the divine.
Exactly. And that awareness helps us keep things in perspective, because as verse 27 reminds us, this world is fleeting, it's all temporary. What really matters is the heavy day, the day of judgment.
The day of judgment. The idea that all our actions in this life will be weighed and judged. It's a pretty sobering thought.
It is. But it also makes you think, if we truly believed in the permanence of the afterlife, how would we live differently? What choices would we prioritize?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
One that I think we should all be asking ourselves.
Definitely. And it leads us to that powerful statement in verse 30, yet you cannot will unless Allah wills. Allah is knowing and wise.
Divine decree. It's a concept that can be hard to grasp. Like, we have free will, but ultimately Allah's will is what governs everything.
It's a delicate balance. We make choices, we strive, but we also acknowledge that we're part of a bigger plan, and that plan is guided by Allah's infinite wisdom.
It's humbling.
Definitely.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here. Surah Al-Insan is a pretty amazing chapter.
It really is. It takes us on this journey through the human experience, creation, purpose, the weight of our choices, the power of divine will. It's all there.
And it definitely leaves you with some things to think about, like, if this life is a test, what kind of choices are we making? Are we striving for righteousness? Are we remembering Allah? Are we living in a way that reflects the belief in an eternal afterlife?
Those are all important questions. Questions that Surah Al-Insan encourages us to contemplate.
And maybe, just maybe, by reflecting on the surah, we can start to make choices that lead us closer to the path of righteousness and the rewards that await in the hereafter.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.